It's been the most exciting, unpredictable election for a generation. Over the next few hours, we'll discover what's happened. Welcome to Election Night here on the BBC. Good evening, and what an extraordinary campaign it's been. It began as a two-horse race. It ended with 3 starters at the line. And in 4 minutes' time, when we have our exit poll, we'll have the first indication of who's the winner, if indeed there is a clear winner. Whether David Cameron becomes the first Tory Prime Minister in 13 years, whether Gordon Brown returns triumphant to number 10, or whether it's Nick Clegg, who in effect acts as the kingmaker. There are 650 constituencies, which each sends 1 MP to the new House of Commons. An electorate of just over 45 million people, whose votes will be counted at nearly 450 centres throughout the United Kingdom. Towns and cities, countryside and suburbs. And we've got our cameras at more of them than any other broadcaster. And a team around me here, the engine room, that will analyse these results as they come in. Some of our top reporters are with the party leaders. Andrew Marr is with David Cameron, Kirsty Walk with Nick Clegg, and John Simpson following Gordon Brown. And Jeremy Vine will open the doors into his virtual world to display the results in all their glory.
Can David Cameron pave the way to number 10? Here are our paving stones flying into Downing Street. Each one of them has a constituency on it. The seats the Conservatives need to win to get Mr. Cameron to the end of the street. They need 116 extra seats for an overall majority, and here they are. And if they win them in order of difficulty, the last one is Waveney. And if they get them, Mr. Cameron is then up the stairs. He opens the door, and as Prime Minister, he goes in.
There'll be plenty more of that to come. And Jeremy Paxman is here to talk to the big political beasts.
Yes, up here on the naughty step, we shall have a constantly changing procession of winners and losers, of battle-weary veterans and eager adventurers, finding out from them what this decision we've made means and what will happen to us now.
And by the London Eye, with a spectacular view across the Thames to the Palace of Westminster, Andrew Neil will be talking to some familiar faces.
Yes, throughout the night I'm going to be talking to an eclectic mix of opinion formers and celebrities, including Piers Morgan, Simon Schama, Ian Hislop, Bruce Forsyth, Joan Collins, Ben Kingsley, and maybe, just maybe, a few surprises.
Fiona Bruce will be keeping us up to date, hour by hour, with what's happened, and the BBC's political editor Nick Robinson with sharp comment on the future of British politics.
Politicians on all sides are expecting a result that makes history. Either the first Tories to eject Labour from government in 3 decades, or a stunning political comeback for Labour, or an uncertain result which could lead to days of haggling, a deal, even a coalition. And the argument about who has the right to govern could start tonight in here.
And to look at any one constituency in this election where every seat matters, Emily Maitlis.
Yes, one big headline result, but there will be clues along the way to help us get there. My team will be sifting through those 650 individual races to see which results start spelling out the big picture. And this machine will help me show you. Here is how we voted last time round. What colour will we paint the country this time? Stay with us as I show you what your vote has done to this map.
Now, in a moment, as Big Ben strikes 10, we'll be able to give the result of our exit poll. For the first time, not an opinion poll, not people saying how they intend to vote, but people answering the question after they've voted. How did you vote? And that's how this is formed. We went to 130 different polling places to find this out. But remember, this is only an exit poll. If it was dead accurate, there'd be no need for anybody to go and vote. And this is what we're saying. It's going to be a hung parliament with the Conservatives as the largest party. And the figures, the Conservatives on 307, short by 19 of the 326 they'd need for an overall majority. Labour on 255, the Liberal Democrats on 59, and others on 29. And if that's right, the Liberal Democrats, despite all that noise and fury, have actually dropped 3 seats, which could be one reason why you need to be a bit sceptical about this exit poll. To make it up, NOP and Mori spoke to 18,000 people in 130 polling stations in England, Scotland, and Wales, and they did it for the BBC, for ITV News, and for Sky. All these polls, of course, have a small margin of error, which could be significant in a tight election like this. In fact, we're almost on the cusp of knowing what actually has happened. 3 main Westminster parties so close in the opinion polls right through, and possibly so close tonight. And there could be different voting patterns around the country. Of course, the exit poll, again, tries to take account of that, but it may not necessarily have got it right. Different people voting in different ways throughout the UK. Everybody agrees this has been a very complicated election. There's the exit poll. It's just a start. Everything to play for. When the first results coming in, it could be a different picture from the one we're showing here. Nick.
Well, drama, excitement, uncertainty is guaranteed by that exit poll, David, because the Tory party there just short of what they need for an overall majority in the House of Commons. Now, if the poll is wrong slightly, they may find that they can indeed hold power. Even with those numbers, they would probably govern successfully as a minority government. Wrong in the other direction, though, and the possibility comes that if indeed the Liberal Democrats do much better than that poll suggests, as many people would expect them to, that there is just the slightest possibility that Gordon Brown could try and hold on to power by coming to an arrangement or indeed a formal coalition with the Liberal Democrats. I mean, what we know is that those exit polls are based on uniform behaviour, and if that is not right, if that does not happen, what we know is we're in for an extremely interesting night.
Nick, true, so true. Now, we've got an innovation this year, big innovation. We've managed to project onto Big Ben, for the first time, the results as they come through. There is Big Ben in the tower, Big Ben, of course, referring to the bell, not the tower itself, and the BBC's exit poll is there, projected on there, and as the results come in, we will continue to put them up there at the very heart of Parliament. And they have to reach that 326 for a majority, which of course they haven't at this stage under the exit poll rules. The Tories on 307, Labour on 255, the Liberal Democrats on 59, others on 29. Now it's just after 10 o'clock and there's a race on now for the first result. The first result's going to be very important to us. The first few will give us some indication of what's gone on. As you know, it's always places that are safe Labour seats that go first, or possibly Torbay, but normally Sunderland, safe Labour, but nevertheless our experts look at those and analyse what change there's been, and our helicopters are up there in the sky spotting ballot boxes being taken in the cars and then rushed to the count. And Sunderland in particular, Houghton and Sunderland South, we expect to be the first to declare. We'll be up there with our reporter in a moment and try and get that result in. Now we're joined by Michael Gove for the Tories and Harriet Harman for Labour. Mr. Gove, have you heard our exit poll? What do you make of it?
Do this. No, it doesn't.
Harriet Harman, I'll come back to you, Michael Gove, in a moment. I think your microphone may not be working. Harriet Harman, what do you make of this exit poll?
Well, as I left my constituency a few minutes ago, people were still queuing at the polling station, and I think up and down the country, people are just finished closing the polling stations, and every vote will need to be counted, every constituency will need to be declared. It's obviously going to be very close, but I think what is clear is that the country does need a strong and stable government to take us through the recession, and the country hasn't turned overwhelmingly to the Conservatives and given them the trust and confidence that the Conservatives were predicting a year or so ago.
Is the implication of what you're saying that if it is a hung parliament of the kind the exit poll is suggesting, not us, and that if it were possible for Labour and the Liberal Democrats together to form a government, that would be the right way to go? Is that what you're suggesting?
No, I'm just saying it's too early to say, because literally the polling stations up and down the country have only just closed, and each individual vote has to be counted and each individual count has to be declared. I mean, this is in a way a moment for a bit of humility from political commentators and political parties. The public will decide, and then obviously we need to have the strong and stable government. We need to follow the constitutional conventions to get that strong and stable government to take us through the recession. But I think it's been clear that there is a general feeling that we need to change the voting system.
Thanks very much, Harriet Harman. Changing the voting system on Harriet Harman's agenda. Michael Gove, Shadow Schools Minister, what do you make of this exit poll? It's a bit disturbing for you after this campaign, isn't it?
I wouldn't say it was disturbing. I think Harriet is right that all of us should show a degree of humility at this stage. The polls have only just closed, and as Harriet pointed out, we need to see the real results. Exit polls in the past have sometimes given us rogue results, so we need to treat it with caution. But what I do think is that it's another piece of evidence, alongside the evidence that we've been picking up during the day, which suggests that there's a comprehensive rejection of Gordon Brown and the Labour government, and a strong vote for change. Harriet is right that we do need a strong and responsible and stable government to steer us through the economic difficulties ahead, but it's pretty clear that the British people believe that Gordon Brown is not the person to lead that government.
Do you hold out hope still of having a governing majority, of getting the 326 that you need?
I absolutely believe that it is possible. Again, the basis on which the exit poll was conducted, as you were honest enough to acknowledge, David, was one which assumes an absolutely uniform national swing. And I suspect that what we may see tonight are some quirky results in individual parts of the country. I also believe, overall, that the strength of support for change and the enthusiasm with which so many people have flocked to the Conservative Party in the last few days of the campaign may mean that we're in a position to have a majority. I certainly think, on the basis of what we've seen so far, that there's been a rejection, as I say, of Gordon Brown and an embrace of the alternative arguments that have been put forward by David Cameron and my colleagues.
Michael Gove, thank you very much. I'm joined here by Vince Cable, Shadow Chancellor for the Liberal Democrats. This is a very strange exit poll for the Liberal Democrats, if it's true that you're 3 seats down from the last Parliament.
Well, it's very strange, and as you've issued all the right caveats. I mean, these polls have been horribly wrong in the past, notably 1992. The key thing this time is they don't include postal votes. Postal votes have been a very high percentage this time, and many of them were issued at the time when we were at the peak of our support in the polls. And we're talking here about uniform swings, and as you know, our support tends to be very strong in some areas, and we have no information on Lib Dem Labour, Lib Dem Tory marginals. All the sense I've got on the ground, talking to my colleagues and my own experience, is there is a fantastic mood of confidence amongst our people.
You said the postal balloting was when you were at your peak. Did you sense a sort of decline, like some people said the wind was going out of the tyre?
Well, you put it over dramatically, but I think there was a period when we were, I think, first in the polls, and that was when a lot of postal votes were cast.
If this is right, who do you think? Look, here are the first ballot boxes being opened in Sunderland, being rushed into the count there. Pupils from local schools running, and they've practiced all this. They've actually weighed the paper to make sure they get paper that can be counted fast. Very briefly, Vince Cable, who would have the legitimacy in this setup if it does come out like this?
Nobody does. I mean, the Conservatives have fallen well short of an overall majority.
Thank you very much. Jeremy, let's have a look at the exit poll in a bit of detail, can we?
Yes, David, let's visualise inside the House of Commons here and bring in the MPs, put them on the benches, government benches this side, and let's look at the winning marker over here. 650 MPs, of course. In order to get an overall majority, you need 326, just over half. And as you've been saying, we'll bring on the Conservatives' numbers now, but just from the exit poll, it does show them falling short, although easily the largest party on 307. So that is where the exit poll leaves us. Again, to visualise this, let's look at the opposition benches. Labour would move over this side of the House of Commons on this result from the exit poll, and they would have 255 seats. And then you can see the Liberal Democrats, let's count them, 62 last time, 59 this time, down a bit according to the exit poll. The others, Welsh nationalists, Scottish nationalists, maybe a Green MP in there, 29 seats. So that is how the House of Commons would look according to our exit poll, And let's just take a look at the battle the Conservatives faced in this election campaign and try and work out if they have fallen short, how that has happened. Here we have the Conservative target battleground. 250 seats the Conservatives got their eyes on, ranging from the most vulnerable, the top left, which is Gillingham, just a 15-vote majority there. Crawley, 37 majority, going down. And as you go down the board and to the right, they get harder and harder for the Conservatives to win until at the bottom right, it's the least vulnerable to this Tory attack. We'll call this the Conservative attack battleground. Now, the Conservatives need 116 extra seats on their 2005 election result for an overall majority. And if they win them on an even advance, we can isolate the 116 that they would need to take. And over here would be the 116th, which is Waveney. All eyes on that one when it's declared later on. If they've fallen short, it could be a number of reasons. What might have happened is that the Lib Dems, who fought the campaign so well in their terms, may have been better protected in their seats, the orange seats on the list, than the Conservatives would have imagined 5 weeks ago. Or possibly the Conservatives simply haven't reached down far enough in the list. They haven't taken the less vulnerable red seats, the Labour seats, towards the end of the list. But we stress again and again here, it is just the exit poll, and it leaves the Conservatives very much on the cusp. David.
Jeremy, thank you very much. Well, let's just have a look at that in detail in a moment. But first, let's join Sophie Rayworth, who's up in Houghton and Sunderland South. Sophie.
10:43, that is the time that they want to declare their first seat by tonight, and they are racing here to do just that. Van after van appearing here at Sunderland's tennis centre. They've got to get all these boxes in here by 10:15, 10:16 if they're going to do it. 41 vans with 41 ballot boxes all rushing in, and the way that they're doing it is by using all these students. They've got 90 students from the local school, sixth formers, who are throwing these boxes down the line as they get them into the tennis centre. I'm just going to squeeze through here and take you inside, and this is where it is all happening. This is the point at which they check in the ballot boxes to make sure that they've got the right things, and they're counting here tonight 3 different seats. Now, everyone is really hard at work. They've got 233 counters counting away to make sure that they get these results by 10:43. That is the time they want to achieve. That is the time that they will break their record. Whether they'll do it, we'll see.
It should become an Olympic sport, I think. Anyway, 10:43, we'll be watching out for that. Now, let's get back to this exit poll and this possibility that there is a hung parliament on the scale that our exit poll suggested. Nick, what would happen in your view then in the real political world?
Well, happily, it's not just my view. It has now been an enormous amount of work has been done behind the scenes, David, to get this clarified as to what the rules should be. Now, I'm going to describe to you what the rules are, rather than what the political reality may actually turn out to be. The rules suggest this, that the Prime Minister, Gordon Brown, is Prime Minister until he resigns. In other words, until the moment it is clear that he himself cannot command the confidence of the House of Commons by having a majority of all the MPs on those green benches. So in theory, even if Gordon Brown has lost, even if Labour has not got as many seats as the Tories, he could then turn to Nick Clegg and say, we would like to do a deal with the Liberal Democrats in order to try and form a stable government.
And the Tories could do nothing about it?
Absolutely, and you will note the words of Harriet Harman in your interview. She said it was a difficult time and the country needed stable government. I think she is preparing the way for that possibility. Now, if that couldn't happen, then what would happen if there were no deal open to Gordon Brown? Then Mr Cameron gets his go, either to form a deal himself with the Liberal Democrats or minor parties, the Ulster Unionists, the DUP, or to have a minority government.
What's the time limit? Sorry to interrupt you. What's the time limit that Gordon Brown would have, if it went that way, to stitch up a deal with the Liberal Democrats?
In theory, many days, 12 days until the Queen's speech. In reality, the pressure of the markets, the pressure from elsewhere. And what we might see, David, tonight is if it's uncertain as to who can do this, there will be an argument about who has legitimacy. The Tories on this sort of result say, hold on, we've won. Gordon Brown has to leave, he has to pack his bags. The Labour Party may be saying, hold on, you haven't got the confidence of the country as a whole. We need a stable government and we think we could form one.
Good, well, there'll be plenty more of that as we get the results in, no doubt, and speculation about what will happen. But let's find out what's happening with the party leaders now. Andrew Marr is at Witney and he's going to be following David Cameron tonight. Andrew.
Well, David Cameron has just been closeted with his closest team, the people who've been with him on this extraordinary 5-year journey in his constituency house in the middle of Oxfordshire. And their immediate reaction to that poll is this. First, it's a decisive rejection of the Labour government and Gordon Brown. In terms of seats, this would, if it was true, represent the biggest swing since 1931. Second, I'm tempted to say I agree with Nick, that's Nick Robinson. On these numbers, the Conservative leader thinks he has enough to govern. He would do whatever he needed to do, note those words, to provide a stable government. But from their point of view, it's obviously not what they would like most of all, which is an overall majority, but it would be enough to govern, and they would do whatever they could do to eject Labour and put in a Conservative minority government. Now, of course, it is very, very early days. This has been a strange election campaign for them as well as for everybody else. And there is, I'm sure, a certain amount of scepticism about this opinion poll.
Andrew, thank you very much. Well, now, let's join John Simpson, who's in Kirkcaldy in Fife, with Gordon Brown. John.
Well, Gordon Brown and his wife, Sarah, and several senior advisors are in the house behind us. Unlike the Conservatives, nobody's come out to give any sort of response to these figures, though you can bet that the whole household is crouched over the television watching this as it happens. I suspect that in amongst the gloom, there will be just a little bit of relief here, because the gloom is obvious, but they've kind of got used to the idea, I think, that they weren't going to win. I think they're just really relieved that some of those suggestions that the Liberal Democrats were going to be the second largest party and so on haven't come to anything. Now, of course, their opinion pollsters told them that, but inevitably, politicians tend not always to believe everything that their own opinion polls tell us, any more than I suspect we should necessarily believe every detail of this particular exit poll.
Thanks very much, John. Now, Kirsty Walk is in Sheffield with Nick Clegg. Kirsty.
Yes, Nick Clegg and his wife are home alone behind us here. They're cooking dinner together and obviously watching this programme. And the interesting thing about this exit poll is, and of course it is a very big if, is that if the Liberal Democrat vote as says at the exit poll and they've lost seats, they'll still be in the position very possibly of being able perhaps to form a coalition with Labour. You heard what Harriet Harman said. The price will probably be voting reform. The price may be Gordon Brown's head. But we're hearing another story tonight here. A woman has just pulled up here, very angry, because a lot of people, queues of people, were turned away from the polling station at 10 o'clock, unable to vote, because one of the polling stations, at least one in Nick Clegg's own constituency, was not able to handle the number of voters wanting to place their votes.
Kirsty, thank you very much. Well, now, just a reminder, in case you joined us late, about this exit poll, it has a hung parliament, is predicted by it. It has no party with an overall majority, in other words. The Conservatives are 19 short at 307. Labour are down 94 on the previous parliament at 255. And the Liberal Democrats are down 3, according to the exit poll, at 59. To chew over this for the first time tonight, Jeremy Paxman.
Thank you, David. Well, I'm joined now by Lord Madnelson, the Labour strategist, by Theresa May from the Conservative Party and Ed Davey from the Liberal Democrats. Labour has been pretty decisively not chosen, if not outright rejected, in this exit poll, if it's correct. You're not going to try to hang on to power, are you?
Well, this has been a most unpredictable election throughout, and it looks as if it's heading for something of a cliffhanger of a result. I mean, if you had said to me 6 months ago that we would achieve a hung parliament as a result of this election, I would not have believed you. It's quite amazing.
But people had the chance to vote for Gordon Brown to continue as Prime Minister, and they have not taken that chance, according to this exit poll.
Well, rather a lot of people have actually chosen the opportunity to vote Labour according to your...
So you might try and hang on to power.
According to your exit poll. But I think what has happened is that after 3 terms in office, of course many people have turned away from the Labour Party.
I'm asking you to look forward.
But what they haven't done is to fly into the arms of David Cameron's Tories.
So you might try to do a deal. Alan Johnson said tonight he's no problem with the deal. You might try to do a deal.
Well, the constitutional conventions are very clear. You know the rules, and the rules are that if it's a hung parliament, it's not the party with the largest number of seats that has first go. It's the sitting government.
So you will try to form some sort of arrangement with the Liberal Democrats in order to hang on to power?
Well, let's wait until we see the result and the exact...
Do you have a problem with deals?
I have no problem in principle in trying to supply this country with a strong and stable government.
Now, Theresa May, if this exit poll is correct, it's a disappointing night for you, isn't it?
Well, first of all, Jeremy, I think it's an unwise politician who doesn't treat exit polls with a certain degree of caution. And I think that's been said.
Okay, well, I'm asking you to talk about the exit poll.
If it is correct, I think what it does show is a clear rejection of Gordon Brown, and I think it shows that Labour would have lost their legitimacy to govern, because if those figures are correct, they'll have had the worst result since 1931.
Fair enough for them to try to come to some sort of arrangement with the Liberal Democrats, isn't it?
I think if those sort of figures that we've seen in that exit poll are correct, what they would have shown would be that the Labour Party would have lost more seats than in any other election since 1931.
But is it not fair enough for them to try to come to some sort of arrangement?
No, I think that actually says the British people are giving a message of rejection of Gordon Brown.
But not overly keen on David Cameron and the Conservatives.
But you're losing your legitimacy to govern if you see that sort of rejection. I mean,
you don't seem to be
on that sort of poll.
Seems to be a problem with your legitimacy as well.
Well, I think, Peter, if you looked, actually, we had rather more seats than Labour on that exit poll, so that suggests a rather greater acceptance of the Conservative message than it does of the Labour Party's message.
Rather more balanced and nuanced result, I think, than the one that you're
losing
describing.
Biggest loss of seats since 1931, balanced and nuanced.
Rather more nuanced.
I rather think not.
Ed, Dave, you are going to say that this exit poll, no doubt, can't be right. Are you?
Well, if we look at the BBC's record on exit polls, in 1992 you were over 60 seats out.
All right.
This certainly doesn't bear witness to those polls that we saw in the campaign or our canvassing.
We'll know by the end of the night.
So you're absolutely right, Jeremy. I completely agree with you. We don't think this exit poll really should.
I was merely speculating as to what you would say, apparently accurately. But let's deal with Peter Mandelson's point. Would the Liberal Democrats be prepared to come to some sort of accommodation with the Labour Party, led by Gordon Brown, so that the Conservatives are kept out of government?
We're not going to speculate on that. What Nick Clegg made very clear during the campaign
it's a matter of principle, surely.
We want to wait and see what the results are. That's what Nick Clegg made very clear. The voters are the kingmakers. We're speculating without one single vote having been counted, and with one seat being declared. Now, come on, Jeremy.
But you might consider getting into bed with Peter Mandelson.
What we want, if there is a balanced parliament, is to make sure that financial stability is the bedrock of the government that emerges. We have to make sure we don't play fast and loose with the British economy.
Well. He's not ruled it out. Very quickly.
There has to be electoral reform as a result of this vote, because I think first past the post is really on its last legs.
Well, we'll see. We're only talking about an exit poll at this point. We'll see how the
on the basis of the exit poll.
Fair enough. David.
Thank you, Jeremy. There's just one interesting quote from Nick Clegg on the Andrew Marr. I said it to Andrew Marr just over a week ago. I think a party which has got the most votes and seats, which in other words has got the strongest mandate, but without an absolute majority, has got the right to seek to form the government. In words that he spoke, he said a number of things, but those seem pertinent tonight. I don't know whether they'll stick with that, but we'll see. I come back. Yes, Nick, very briefly.
To seek to form a government. Very important, careful choice of words.
Yes.
Nick Clegg is simply saying that the largest party could try, but if they couldn't form a stable government, then someone else would have a go.
But
Peter Mandelson's writing the script for it as we speak, saying that the basis of it is electoral reform and stability in the face of an economic crisis.
But he's not saying Gordon Brown has to go on the basis of this.
He's not saying it has to go. Very carefully chosen words that David Cameron, on the basis of our exit poll, Nick Clegg is saying, would have first go.
OK.
But if he failed, then they could reconsider a
Emily
deal with Gordon
Maitlis,
Brown.
your chance to have first go.
Yeah, just to remind you that the big picture of the night will emerge from these hundreds of individual races that are going on. My team's analysing what's actually happening at the count alongside YouGov's Peter Kellner to look and see what the first trends of the night are. That could really point us in the right direction. So if I take you to a few of those early declarers, you saw the mad running with the boxes in Sunderland. There's a cluster of seats. Sunderland Central is one of them. This is staunchly Labour territory traditionally, and it needs some big swings to see this move away from Labour. But this seat is one that David Cameron has said is his wild card. Now, if they can take this, it will be a major upset for Labour. Even if they can't, we'll be looking to see what happens to the Conservative share of the vote here. Any improvement might pave the way for success in places where the battles are closer. Places, for example, like Carlisle, Cumbria. Now, here, the Labour vote took a big hit a couple of elections ago over foot and mouth. And here is somewhere that the Conservatives really have to start pushing into to prove they understand the working class concerns of the North. Peter.
Yes, Emily, Carlisle is the sort of seat the Conservatives really need to take if they're to get close to 326 seats. They need a 7% swing. Now, one of the interesting things in our exit poll is that it finds that the swing to the Conservatives is almost twice as high where Labour has a new candidate as where Labour has a sitting MP. And in Carlisle, it's a new candidate. So on the exit poll, the Conservatives might be in with a chance there.
And bearing that in mind, then, if I take us to Birmingham Edgbaston, you'll remember this as one of the first televised victories for Tony Blair in 1997, this leafy suburb of Birmingham, bringing a very popular MP, Gisela Stewart, to power. Look how tight this race is here, less than a 2% swing needed here. If the Conservatives don't take this seat, it will have been a disastrous night for them, Peter.
But this is where there is a sitting MP, and if the Conservatives don't take this comfortably, they're in trouble. But it might not be such a big swing because Labour does have a sitting MP.
Peter, thanks very much. We'll be looking closely at the results from those first seats when they emerge in the next few minutes. David.
Thanks, Emily. Well, let's leave our glamorous BBC election studio and join an even more glamorous sight on the Thames, where Andrew Neil, who's been throughout this election conducting debates with all the politicians, had 9 debates, I think, whereas some of us only got 1. Anyway, Andrew's down there on the Thames. Andrew.
Yes, we're in the heart of London, on the banks of the Thames, under the London Eye, just across the river from the Houses of Parliament. And I'm joined by 3 of our guests here at our event tonight. Piers Morgan, Jane Moore and Clive Anderson. Piers, you said to me for months and months and months, don't underestimate Gordon Brown. Guess you overestimated him.
No, it's not over yet. I mean, I don't actually believe this exit poll. I cannot believe that Liberal Democrats have gone down. So I think the 3-party situation we've seen developing for the last few weeks has now led to a skewed exit poll. I just can't accept that that's true.
But even if the exit poll is not entirely accurate, and I accept it is only an exit poll, it does look like the Tories are the clear leaders without an overall majority, but way ahead of anybody else.
It does, and if you ask me what I honestly think I picked up the front page of one of the papers today, it's yours actually, Jane, calling David Cameron the new Obama. I don't think he's a new Obama, and I think we're being sold a pup here by a media collaboration designed to make us think this is the great new future. This country, by the end of next week, I suspect, will be facing one of the great financial crises we've had in a very long time, and we are about to, if these polls are right, turf out Gordon Brown and Alistair Darling, 2 of the most experienced financial politicians we've had in decades. It's a crazy situation.
Well, there's a financial crisis underway in New York right now, and it may hit us in London tomorrow. Indeed, the markets are opening at 1 o'clock this morning. We'll see what happens there. Jane Moore, your paper and yourself, did you come out for Cameron because you wanted Mr. Cameron or because you wanted rid of Mr. Brown?
A little bit of both, I think. I think that I don't think Gordon Brown is a bad man. I just think he's not been a great Prime Minister, and I think he's completely lumbered by the past 13 years of his own record and that of New Labour. And Nick Clegg, the longer that he went on after the first leaders' debate, the more it became obvious that
you think the Lib Dems have petered out?
Yeah, I think he was flip-flopping on policy. He was repeating himself. I don't think he bore much scrutiny. They've not really prepared for government because they weren't expecting to have that bounce.
The most surprising thing about this exit poll is the Lib Dems getting only 59, losing seats. I mean, we began today thinking they may get 100. Now, they may still, because it's just a poll.
It'd look a bit weird, doesn't it?
But have we been witnessing the rise and fall of the Lib Dems in one act?
Well, I suppose in the third leadership debate, it was a bit odd when he was denying the euro. It was like the cock crowing behind him as he denied it. But perhaps Piers should have been in charge of all the leadership debates, and he could have asked all of them where they proposed to their wives and whether they joined the Mile High Club. And we'd have had a more perceptive view of the leaders.
You mean getting to the heart of policy?
Yes,
exactly. Yeah. What should Gordon Brown do now?
Wait, because I think it's going to be a very long night. I don't accept this exit poll. I think that Gordon Brown may be pleasantly surprised. We're going to get a hung parliament at the moment. Is that good for David Cameron? Is it good for the country? I'm not sure it's good for either of them. You know, this financial situation developing is arguably a bigger story than what's happening with our politics right now. And whoever inherits this mess has got to fix it very quickly.
So we're just fiddling around while grease burns.
It's not going to burn in this temperature, let me tell you. It's pretty cold. I'm going to leave you here. I'm going indoors. Enjoy yourself. Now, if you're going to have a major election night event, this is where you want to have it, here in the heart of London, surrounded by historic buildings resonant of our democracy. But come on inside with me, because this is where the party is going on. It's a little warmer in here too. Let's just walk downstairs and see who we have. We have Bruce Forsyth and Ben Kingsley.
Hello.
Welcome to both of you. Let me start with you, Ben. Were you energized by this campaign?